Hey guys, so today we'll be talking about Airtable, which is also the tool that we have used for our student attendance, our curriculum, as well as the students' database. Right? We also use it for our accounting system, where we connect our students' payments with the Buku, which is our accounting system. Right? So think of Airtable as an Excel sheet, right? As well as a database and a little bit of automations, all in a single place, on one place, right? So unlike spreadsheets like Google Sheets or Excel, right? Airtable doesn't just store data in rows and columns, right? I mean, they do have rows and columns in this table, but it behaves like a relational database, right? Meaning these tables can link to each other, right? For example, student attendance, we are getting the names all from this table, which is students, right? All of these students. And we're able to also get the curriculum, the lesson modules, all from this curriculum table, right? Lesson module, all of this. So today I'll be just showing you the basics, right? The stuff that saves you the most time without getting technical or getting into the nitty-gritty details, right? So without further ado, we can just start off with the first page, right? Which is where you start off from, which is the home page, where you see all of the bases, right? So these are all the bases, right? And this is one base, right? And in each base, there is many different tables that you can set up, right? Inside each table, we have fields, right? These columns, where you can have different types of data, right? Numbers, attachments, right? Let's see. We can have numbers, attachments, right? Checkboxes, text, URLs, phone numbers, emails, right? All the way to roll-ups, lookups, and most importantly, we have linking to another record, right? Which is how we've linked this name with students and how curriculum with lessons with curriculum. Yep. So instead of repeating data everywhere, right? For example, Sarah's data, all of this data, instead of repeating it here and again in student attendance, we are able to link the information, right? So for example, where's Sarah? Amirul Hakim, right? Amirul Hakim is here, all of his data. We can also access it in this table under student attendance by just clicking it, and we can see all of his data here, right? This is just a dummy data, so for this demo purposes, so everything up until here can be actually ignored, right? Up till here can be ignored. So this helps us a lot because when you link data together, you reduce mistakes and you create one source of truth, right? Which is the biggest difference between Airtable and Excel, Google Sheets, etc. Because you have to copy that whole column again in this other sheet. It's not linked together. If you change one, it doesn't necessarily change accurately, right? The key idea here is you store the information once, which is all of this student information at one place, and the others just references it, which is what relational database means, right? Ultimately. So each column is actually a field, as I mentioned before, right? So it's not just text, right? You can make it into a rating, right? You can make it into a drop-down, right? A drop-down. And you can even make it into a file upload if I wanted to, right? If you can just edit field, you can choose it to be a file, right? An attachment. And you can then attach proper files in here, right? So in this sense, if you already know you're going to be receiving a name, you can maybe structure it as a name. If you know you're going to be receiving it as an email, you can then change the field into an email, right? An email, right? So this would help protect your data from human error, which would prevent your automations down the line to not fail. So now I'm going to show you how we can link different datas, different students or different datas from different tables, right? Which is also where Airtable becomes a database, right? So here is actually where it becomes a database when you actually link two tables together and share information within one another instead of just copy pasting, right? So I will just show you how I can link the students, right, into a table, right? Another table. Let me just create a new table, right? Just save it like that. This is just the name. I can show you. Can I do this? Yeah, so this is just, I'll just start it on a new table, right? So I'll just put this as per the earlier one, which is an auto number. So as we go down, number, you automatically generate unique numbers lah, so we won't have any duplicates. So starting here, we can always edit field, put it as linked to another record, and in this case, students, right? Because this is where the parent information is, and this is where we're going to populate it is where the children information are. Think of it like that, right? So student, right? And with that, you'll be linking the records to the students table, right? You can allow linking to multiple records, right? Just save, right? So now we are able to add a lookup field, right? So lookup field basically lets you show specific data in this student records, right? Specific fields in this student record, right? So I want to show the student's name, phone, and email in this table, right? For example, now I get to see their name, phone, and email from this student, right? Let's rename this student name, right? So now I can always select a student from this table, and it'll populate its phone, name, phone, and email, right? So, for example, Sarah Lee Mason, I want to get her phone number and email. I can always just pick her out from here, right? And it'll automatically populate her name, phone, and email, which keeps things consistent when we are building the form later on, right? Because we want this to be always consistent. The name will always be consistent, just that the ID will always be changing, right? Which is what we keep track of for the attendance tracker, right? Another thing great about Airtable is that we have different views to organize the data without changing the data inside, right? For example, I want it to be in a Kanban view, right? I'm able to see where each of them are in, which module are they in, right? Or if I want to see it in a calendar view, right? I'm able to see who actually attended this class today, right? For example, let's say now today is everyone is on the 5th. Let's say if I just change their dates to the 4th, right? The 4th to the 4th, right? So I've changed this 4 people should be on the 4th, right? Emily Wong all the way to Miss Priya. So if you head over to calendar, you can see all of them are in the 4th and these are on the 5th. So in that sense, you can always create your own view, right? For example, I prefer the calendar view. I can always create it as a Dennett view, right? This is my view only. So if I do any edits, this is the way I like to see it. Or if, let's say someone prefers this as the someone's view, right? So Dan's view, right? For example. You can also even create a view where it's the master view, right? Master view. Yeah, so do not edit, something like that. So this allows people to have a different perspective on the same data. So everyone stays organized and no one is lost, right? So you can have all of these types of views, right? Gallery, list, Gantt chart as well. Let's just try out with gallery, right? You're able to see all of the data in one shot for this day. For example, if you want to filter for just today, right? Let's say date is today, right? So you're only able to see these 4 students that attended the class, for example. Or if you want to make it to yesterday, right? You can see the 4, which is the same as calendar view, and which is also the same in this previous view, right? Where you can then have filters up here to set your conditions. So these filters come in handy because you can set it. Let's say, for example, date equals is today, right? And I want to create a duplicate view, right? So this will be today's attendance. Today's attendance will change. Keep track. 5 p.m. right? Keep track on every 5 p.m. to see who actually attended the class, for example. So you don't have to always click and edit it in this spreadsheet, right? For example, you have a team of 10, everyone is creating their own filter. So you can have this one attendance to keep track every day at 5 p.m., right? To see what are their feedbacks or who attended the class, for example. I also did mention how we have a form where we take the students' feedback, and which is also how we keep track of their attendance, right? When they fill up the form, they will create a record under this student attendance table, right, which is down here. So it creates a record, an entry in this table, right? It also creates a date in this form, which is the important field that we're going to keep track of later. So under students, we have date rollup. So rollup, which is the type of the field, right? It's important because it helps us summarize data from linked records, right? Summarize data from linked records. In this case, it summarizes data from student attendance, right? So it takes the data, right? We have the linked field here, right? We have linked the data from the student attendance, right? We just name it as feedback, right? So this is the feedback that they've entered, and this is the ID, the unique ID that they've filled under student attendance, right? Student attendance, ID number 7, Amirul Hakim, and his ratings, etc. So if you go back to student attendance, number 7, it's him, right? So we are actually linking this field into students, right? And through there, we are getting the date. We are just getting the date under that feedback, right? We're only getting the date under the student attendance, and we're getting the unique value, right? So we are only getting the unique value from the dates, right? For example, if let's say Amirul Hakim created 3 entries, right? He entered 3 forms. We're only getting 1. We are just getting rid of all the duplicates. And in this case, we are getting the dates in a ISO format, right? An ISO format, which is the way Airtable uses this standardized timestamp format. So we then have a formula that tells us whether or not the student is present or absent based on whether or not today the timestamp here is found, right? If it's not found, then the person will be absent, right? If the person is found, it will be present. In this case, this person's one is on the off, so it's absent. The others will be present, right? Alright, that's about it from me, right? So in the next video, I'll show you how we can turn something simple like a feedback form into an automatic attendance taking tracking using Airtable. Right, so in this video, I just went through the basics, right? Which is what is a base, what is a field, and what are the types of fields, as well as how you can create roll-up, how you can utilize roll-ups or the formulas, right? So in the next video, I'll show you how we can create the interface as well as the forms for that make all of this possible. Thank you for watching.